As I was sitting there listening to these stories, and I'm lucky enough to be able to travel around and hear these stories, and it gets me. I became a Rotarian 10 years ago because of Tara Dacus and former Governor Dave Dacus. And the reason I became a Rotarian was because I was speaking actually in Concord, and Tara Dacus was in the audience, and she said, "William, you need to be a Rotarian." I said, "What's a Rotarian?" And I go to their meeting, and at that meeting, they were talking about an idea. I came back a couple of weeks later, they had a committee for this idea. I came back 2 or 3 months later, they were starting the thing. They don't just sit and talk. And you can tell by these slides, we don't sit and talk. We sit, talk, plan, and then we do. So that's why I'm honored to be a Rotarian and honored to hang out with you fine folks. I want to talk about happiness. And what I began to do is I'm a happy person. And I began to uncover why I'm happy because I was asked to do a presentation around happiness. And so I did the presentation around happiness, and folks came up after saying, "You got a book about that?" I mean, those are some great things. I said, "No, there's no book." And someone asked me to do it again, so I spoke again, and they also asked about a book. And so I began to sort of break it down and say, okay, what is happiness? And I did a test. I drove Uber Saturday mornings for a couple of months, because people wanted $10,000 for the research. I said, well, no, let me do something else. And I drove Uber, and I interviewed people in this Uber, maybe 100, 110 people, and I asked them key questions. And I found about 4 major things that happy people do. And I'm not going to share them with you. They do about 4 things. But what I've realized also, there's a concept called relative want. And people as people will do things that make them feel good as long as those things feel good. So you get paid in endorphins by going to a Rotary meeting. You get paid in endorphins by all the good stuff we do because it feels good. And all of us sit here and look at this stuff like, yes, that's how we get paid. If it doesn't feel good, at some point we would stop doing it. All human behavior is guided by that. Then you add to that what's called relative want. Relative want says, there's a scale. So if I have a relationship that's 80-20, I'm getting 80% good, 20%, I can eat that, right? That's fine, because I'm getting 80. But once it gets close to 50-50, people make changes and decisions in terms of their lives for change. So that as a backdrop, it sort of brings back what my father used to say, and he said, most of the things that happen to you happen because you either allowed them or you caused them. I knew there was racism and sexism and homophobia and all of that stuff, but what he was talking about is, can we govern the part we can govern about our behavior? And that led me to this idea. Can you teach or train happiness? And I think you can. In fact, I wrote a book about it. And I'll share the results. So what is laughter? Laughter is critical, and there are 4 key components of happiness. One is laughter. The other is listen. The other is care. So there's laugh, there's listen, there's care, and compare. Let's talk about laugh. Why is laughter so important? Laughter is important because it releases endorphins and dopamine. It makes us feel good. It helps reduce stress. Also, it is almost impossible to laugh if you're angry. So if you're driving down the street and someone jumps over in front of you in the lane, which are our lanes, it's not your lane, it's not my lane, it's our lane, right? But they jump over in front of you and you get upset. And if you walk in here with that same upsetness, in other words, you cannot cleanse your mental palate, therefore when someone says something funny, you can't even begin to laugh because you're still thinking about that. That is a condition that causes you not to be as happy. So what I've learned about happy people is they have the ability to cleanse their mental palate. Cleanse their mental palate. Stuff happens. I lost my grandmother. I lost my father, right? We lose people. Stuff happens. But at some point you have to say, I am still alive, and therefore I cleanse my mental palate and I keep on with life. So some tips around laughing. Look for the good. Look for things that are good. Every day, there may be 100 million bad things that happen on planet Earth, but I submit there are at least 1 billion or 2 billion good things. But if you watch the 11 o'clock news, you won't know that. So I don't. Now, don't get me wrong, we have to be safe, we have to be aware, we have to know what's going on, but I'm not going to put that poison into my mind at 11 o'clock at night and drive that through my subconscious all night long. Because our subconscious is amazing. What it does, and I remember being a kid, and I was doing some homework, and I was with my grandmother, we called her Grandma, and in fact, we were really lucky. We went to Grandma University in terms of our child care, our grandparents. Anyway, my grandmother is sitting there, and I can't do some problem. It's third grade, whatever. And she's like, what's wrong? I said, I can't get this. She said, well, baby, step away from it. And I step away from it and do something else, and I come back. I was like, wow, that's it. And I really used to think about that. How does that happen? And we've all done it. Step away from the problem and we come back. What happens is our subconscious mind is constantly working on the problem. And we get our conscious mind out of the way and let the subconscious sometimes do it, especially if we have the answer in there somewhere, it comes up. Well, you take that and tie that to watching the 11 o'clock news and some little kid was raped and murdered, and that's the last thing you put in your subconscious, and there's nothing you can do about that, but the subconscious is mulling over that. And therefore you wake up jaded and paranoid and cynical. I refuse to live that way. So I laugh. I look for jokes. I tell stories. I look at puppies. I look at babies. I give kids thumbs up in the supermarket. So I'm like, that's a man. And I go thumb, and the parent turns, I go thumbs up too, right? And they laugh, and it's a funny thing. So laugh, that's huge. Laugh often, laugh. Look for laughter. Keep your palate clear. Look for good stuff in the course of this existence. The second thing is care. Care says, I take a bullet for my grandkids. I get up every day with this reason to do things. Care says, and if you look at men and women, men die before women, on average. And not because women kill us, it's just because men die. Right? So men die on average before women. But the difference when the two go, widowers will last a lot less longer in life than widows. Why is that? Widows, as women, tend to, let's call it feed the culture. Like my wife will say, have you called our son? Have you called the daughter? I'm like, no, we're cool. And she's like, you haven't talked to him, right? And I'm like, I think we're fine. But she services that part of our culture in our household. And that is not sexist. It is just, there's something about women that nurture culture. And because they nurture culture, they nurture relationships. And because they nurture relationships, when they lose their husband, they still have the sewing circle, the church circle, right? They have these organizations they're engaged in. And these organizations are the reasons they get up every day. And these relationships are the reasons they get up every day. Whereas men, we tend to live in our caves, right? So when the wife goes, unless we've established these other cultures, we don't have big reasons to get up, and we die much quicker than females. Now this leads to an important point. The second factor is listen. Listen is the crux of communication, and communication is the crux of relationships. And there was a book written called The Good Life, and if you don't have it, get it, which is a 90-year study over this key concept. What's the most important single factor in longevity and happiness? It's relationships. That keeps you alive. Just like food, water, vacations, relationships. So the second factor is listen and a relaxed focus, meaning I sit, I talk to you, I set my phone down. Hopefully I move it out of sight because our phones, we're addicted to them, so it takes my concentration. Also, what I want to do is make sure I'm like you. I'm having conversations with folks, and oftentimes I think about what I'm going to say while they're talking. Good listeners try to shut that noise down and try to go all into what's being said. And so you can hear it. And know this, be hungry. Every person you ever meet knows something interesting that you don't know. Right? They can be 8, they can be 80. And if that's true, then we tie into the basic law of ego. The basic law of ego says, I feel very good about you when you listen to me talk about me. You feel very good about me when I listen to you talk about you. So if I can be quiet and absorb what you're saying and take active mental notes, the next time we have a conversation, I can throw some of those things out. You go on a first date and someone tells you everything, and on the second date you're asking the same questions, there will not be a third date. Right? Because it was clear you weren't paying attention to me. The third is care. So first is laugh, second is listen, care, and that's the reason. I've already hit that in terms of how you get up and why you care and all of that stuff. Now go to compare. This is probably the biggest ingredient in the recipe for unhappiness. Look at 13, 14, 15-year-old girls looking at Facebook and Instagram and all these things, thinking they should judge themselves by that behavior. Look at some of us. Someone gets a certain car and they drive down the street and we say, oh, I'm so jealous. And we might be joking, but I don't think so. A lot of those words are poison and we use those. And how do kids learn that stuff? They don't understand sarcasm. So when they hear their parents talking about the couple down the road who has a this or who've done a that, they think that's part of the behavior. That's what their software becomes. And we run around with jealousy. And just to drive the point home, I played basketball in high school. So in other words, I didn't play basketball, right? And so if I were to play basketball now, what if I said, okay, I'm going to shoot 3-point shots. And if I practiced, and right now if I just did it, could I make 10 out of 100? Possibly. But if I practiced and practiced and practiced and watched videos, could I get to maybe 15 or 16 or 17% after about 4 or 5 months? Probably. And if I compare that 10% to the 17%, I'm like, you know what? I got better. But if I compare myself to Steph Curry, who has a lifetime average of 48%, then I feel less than. My biggest competition is William Kenneth Wesley. I know that guy intimately. He was with me last year. I want to be better than he was last year. My pronouns are me, myself, and I. No, right? I want to be better. So that's my rubric. I want to be a better husband, better father, better grandfather, better speaker, right? Now, don't get me wrong. When I see something nice, I see you in a nice car, I can say, that's a nice car. And what one human can do, another can do. But I'm not jealous. And apparently they're going to make another car like that. And I can get that car or truck or whatever if I want that. I look at speakers. There are some outstanding speakers. I'm a good speaker. I want to be a better speaker. I'm not jealous of the better speaker. I'm like, I see what he did, right? He did a this, he did a that. That's the news. That's the news. That's how I can go through the day saying, yes, right? If you ask me how I'm feeling, I am thriving. And yes, I understand the stuff going on. And I make certain decisions around my behavior in reference to that. But I am not going to let circumstances out of my control steal my joy. It's like inflation. 2022, inflation was 7%. And you know what inflation is? The overall rise in goods and cost of goods and services. So in 2022, if inflation's 7%, that's a macro. I'm not Powell. I can't hit the button and reduce interest rates. But I can look at my household and say, you know what? This inflation is out of control. We're going to cut back. If we can reduce our costs this year by 5%, then inflation doesn't hurt us that much. So that's macro, but micro is what can I control? I can control what I say. I can control the ethics I demonstrate. I can control what I believe. I can control certain things inside of me. The things I can't control, I'm going to let them. I'm going to let you be what you be. You're a grown person, but if you ask my opinion about some things, I'm more than willing to give you my opinion, but I'm not going to hold my personal worth to your response to my opinion. I have a belief. You have a belief. If you don't believe what I believe, fine. If you ask me to express my belief, I'll give it to you. If you take it and run with it and say, yeah, I get it, I'll say, cool. If you take it and run with it and say, no, I don't get it, I'll say, cool. Cool. So how does this tie to the club level? Club should be fun. If I come into your club and it's not fun, that doesn't feel good. I'm a volunteer, you're a volunteer. I didn't come here to work. I will do work if the work is fun, right? We get together, we're stuffing oranges in the bag at the food program, and we're cracking jokes to each other. That's fun, right? And we're doing all these things with kids. We're at PAL giving out burritos and stuff. That's fun, and the kids are laughing, right? That's fun. My club should be fun. Next bullet. It should be welcoming. No one in your club should be sitting by themselves, especially new members. New members come in, they should be assigned to someone. Learn names. I know we have cliques, we're humans, we're Rotarians, but we're humans first. And some of our clubs, the same people sit in the same seats and they don't want other people sitting in those seats. That's your thing, but clubs should be welcoming. So if I walk in, I don't know you, I'm gonna say, hey, what's your name? I'm William. I do that every time. And I get to learn people's names. And I take mental notes. I find that person was an accountant and they did this and they did that. There should be, in the first 90 days for new members, 2 drips a week. Meaning, some kind of contact. Hey, we're doing this. Hey, did you get the bulletin? Oh, you came to the meeting, but write something. Or maybe 1 drip a week. But drips in those first 90 days saying, we are touching you. We know you're here. You came to the club. We are touching you because we care about you. We want you to join. It should be engaging. Assign someone to everyone. Give them targets like 90-day blue badge. What does that mean? 90 days, you should have a blue badge. There's no reason not to. Engaging, blue sky question. If there weren't any obstacles, new member, what problem or challenge would you go after? Money doesn't matter. Politics doesn't matter. There are no obstacles. What would be the thing you would attack? SMART member goals. We know what the acronym SMART, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? Craft things that are doable so they can have early successes and then celebrate those successes, like the Good Character Youth Award, which was founded in our club, Fairfield Sassoon. Tara Dacus and the gang and all of us put that together. It's phenomenal because A students tend to get some attention. F students tend to get some attention, right? It's attention, but it's still attention. That middle student who's just showing up to school every day and being a good person because the parents and grandparents and everyone poured their love into them for them to be good people. And they're being reinforced just by their behavior. We said, what if our community reinforced it? What if we stood and applauded kids for being good kids? I say that to say this. When Rotarians, we're still kids, right? When someone does something, we applaud them. We tell them, especially new members. A new member went to the board meeting and said, right on. I didn't make my first board meetings or whenever, right? Tell them they did a good thing, whatever the good thing is, because it is a good thing. The only question is whether we acknowledge it. Incorporate family. In the first 90 days, get the new Rotarian to bring their family to the meeting. So their family sees what it is, and therefore the family supports this. Bring their family to the meeting. So, 4 factors of great clubs, to sort of piggyback on my 4 factors of happiness, right? Your club should be fun. Your club should have great relationships. Club members should feel cared for and valued. Your club should compare itself to its priors. Now Fairfield Sassoon is the best club in Rotary, right? No, but Orinda's the best club in Rotary, right? So it's okay to have that and feel that. That's all good, fun competition. But in terms of what we go after, are we trying to make Fairfield Sassoon better than it was last year? We took home the trophy last time for membership, right? So we want to do it again. But someone out here should be saying, wait a minute, they got more members than we did, we should get more members. That kind of competition and stuff is fine. That's good, fun, healthy Rotary competition. All of our clubs are the best club. And when I go speak to a club, I say, this is the best club, right? Like you 5 clubs, you're the best club. But it's okay, because we're all great clubs. So I did bring a few books. One, this is my lifestyle. Spiritual, physical, professional, charitable, and social. This is what I uncovered in terms of my studies on happiness. I'll hang out, and I have a few books there, and I'll answer questions, so just shake hands and kiss babies. Thank you very much for your time.